Thank you, welcome. And it truly is our honor to welcome Ambassador Anderson to Butte, aka Maryland's 5th province. We'd give you a little bit of grief for going to Anaconda first this morning, but we'll let it slide on the old adage that you save the best for last. With your deep respect and interest in labor history and Butte's deep Irish roots, you couldn't have chosen a better place to come visit. And again, it's just very heartwarming and our honor to welcome you here today. I'm sure you've heard of Bailey's Irish Cream. Well, we have our own little distillery here in town called Headframe Spirits. And it's called Headframe Spirits because all of the liquors that they distill are named after one of many of our headframes in town. The Never Sweat, the Anselmo, the Destroying Angel, or in the case of our version of bourbon cream liqueur, the Orphan Girl. And so to give you a true fitting Butte Irish welcome, we present you from our Headframe distillery a bottle of Orphan Girl whiskey. And the fact that Butte has a higher number of Irish per capita than any place in America at 27%, good chances are that the Irish, or the Orphan Girl, though she's not named, is probably Irish. So. And now I'll turn the microphone over to our very proud leader of the archives, Ellen Crane.
Thank you. I'd like to take a moment and just introduce people at the head table. Joe Lee, who is representing the Ancient Order of Hibernians and the Ladies' Ancient Order of Hibernians. Lori Maloney, who is here to speak on behalf of the Friendly Sons and Daughters of St. Patrick and the Anne Rebra Group. The Honorable Matt Vincent, Chief Executive. Father Beretta of St. Patrick's Parish of the North Unit. Her Excellency Ann Anderson, Ambassador of Ireland to the United States. And Philip Grant, Consul General of the Western part of the United States from Ireland. Thank you. So I'm going to turn the podium over to Joe Lee, who will welcome the ambassador on behalf of the OH.
Good afternoon, everyone. Good afternoon, everyone. It's certainly a pleasure for me as president of the Men's Ancient Order of Hibernians to be here this afternoon. Certainly a momentous occasion for Butte, America. Your Excellency, Consul General Grant, and distinguished guests, on behalf of the Ladies and Men's Ancient Order of Hibernians, we welcome you to Butte, America. In planning for this momentous visit, Ellen Kearns, President of the Ladies Ancient Order of Hibernians, and I were asked to say a few words regarding our AOH organization. In a very subtle and persuasive way, Ellen deferred comments to me, which may have been a mistake, Ellen. I'm sure that most of you in this room have heard of the Ancient Order of Hibernians, but not much else may be known to some of you, so I thought I'd give you a brief history about our organization. In preparing for this brief history of the organization called the Ancient Order of Hibernians, and the important role that it played in Butte's development, I broke it into 3 segments. Now, I don't want to scare you off. This is not that lengthy. It's only about 3 minutes. First, we're going to talk about the early beginnings of the AOH, the role of the AOH in Butte's development, and the AOH in today's society. The Ancient Order of Hibernians is America's oldest Irish Catholic fraternal organization, established concurrently in the coal mining region of Pennsylvania and New York City in May of 1836. It had roots back to a series of similar societies that existed in Ireland more than 300 years ago. These early Irish societies were born of a need in the mid-15th century to protect Catholics, and especially the clergy, who risked immediate death to keep the Catholic faith alive in Ireland after England's penal laws of 1691 were put into effect. In 1879, 137 years ago, a handful of men met in a small log schoolhouse in Butte suburb of Walkerville, approximately 1 mile from where we sit today. These men set the groundwork for the establishment of the Butte Division of the Ancient Order of Hibernians. By the early 1900s, the AOH was comprised of 3 divisions with an approximate membership of 1,000 members. The AOH gave support to the thousands of Irish immigrants who came to Butte to work in the copper mines. It provided a home away from home for the arriving Irish, offering a sense of security and stability by aiding members in obtaining jobs in the mines and elsewhere, and by attending to their social needs, including medical, health, and death benefits. There were a number of other Irish organizations at that time, but none was more important than the AOH in the role that it played in the assimilation of the Irish into Americans' culture. The large number of Irish in Butte and their assimilation resulted in Butte becoming a major Irish community in America. Over time, the Irish became involved in every facet of Butte's community life. Having recently commemorated the 100th anniversary of the 1916 Easter Rising, it is worth noting that the AOH Butte Division meeting minutes for April 26, 1916 reflected a motion for a donation that was approved to support the Irish volunteer movement in Ireland. On May 3rd, 1916, a motion was made and approved to drape the division charter for 30 days in respect to those who died in the uprising. On May 10th, 1916, a joint session of the Ancient Order of Hibernians with the Ladies Auxiliary appropriately commemorated the execution of the Irish patriots by the English government. Again, on June 7, 1916, Division Number 1 of the AOH approved a monetary donation to the Irish Red Cross Fund. Today, our AOH Association is less demand-driven than in its earlier days. However, it is active and it plays a major role in the community by providing monetary and voluntary support for a number of organizations, such as the Butte Food Bank, Big Brothers and Sisters Program, the Empty Bowl Program, the World Museum of Mining, which houses Irish artifacts dating back to the 1880s. We also sponsor a youth Little League team and many more. I'm proud to report that despite today's fast-paced lifestyle, our organization continues to grow, while many others are experiencing a decline in membership. The major goal of our organization is the preservation of our Irish heritage and culture. We proudly lead the annual St. Patrick's Day Parade, which first started in 1882. We publicly recognize our heritage and the contribution of generations of Irish and Irish American men and women by successfully advocating the passage of a proclamation by the local government declaring March as Irish American Heritage Month. And Matt Vincent has signed that proclamation for the last 3 years, and we appreciate it. We take exception and respond to any insults denigrating or defaming our Irish heritage or culture. As Hibernians, we too serve as ambassadors to our heritage. It's one of the reasons for our existence as an organization and a basic duty that we take seriously. Over the period of the past 2 years, our organization with volunteers and community support has been engaged in the restoration of St. Patrick's Cemetery, which was established in 1885. Work is being done to bring about the desired resting place expectation of those who have loved ones interred there. The cemetery is an important part of Butte's history. It tells the story of our community and honors those that came before us. Despite the geographical separation by an ocean, strong ties between Butte and Ireland have existed for over 100 years and continue to exist and grow. Your visit today, Your Excellency, is evidence of that enduring and lasting relationship. We thank you for taking time out of your busy schedule to visit our great city. We trust that you'll find your visit to be enjoyable and a memorable one. And we thank you. Now it gives me pleasure to introduce Laurie Maloney, who will be representing the sons and daughters of St. Patrick, and also, I believe, Andre.
And Ambassador Anderson and Consulate Grant, on behalf of the Friendly Sons and Daughters of St. Patrick, that was established here 108 years ago in Butte, Montana, Ireland's 5th province. We have celebrated the patron saint of Ireland, St. Patrick, with a banquet on March 16, where we share stories of our Irish heritage, enjoy a fine dinner, and have a toast or two to the ones that are no longer with us. And the benefits of these ticket sales that we have after we pay the bills go into the coffers to provide scholarships for our graduating seniors from both of our high schools. It's not a definitely formed foundation or group of people anymore, but we have a core group of people that work on it and put it together every year, and it's always done in the right frame of mind and with love in our hearts. But now, Irish heritage is definitely important to the people of Butte. It's a hard-working community, and we are very proud to host the Henri Roth Irish Festival. This is probably one of the premier festivals in the Northwest and quickly becoming one throughout the United States. We have class acts for the last 4 years of great Irish music. We have, we are associated with the Gaelic Cultural Society, so we have some Irish language workshops. We have different lecture series. We have some of the best Irish dancing that we have with our own Kiernan dancers right here in Butte. And they work in conjunction with the Trinity dancers out of Chicago. And we have a wonderful group of kids that perform in that. This is really just a fun-filled family welcome festival. And we are definitely inviting you personally for any time that you will be here, the 2nd week of August, that weekend, and we know you'll enjoy yourselves. We are honored that you are visiting us. With, even though it's going to be a brief visit, we hope that you will experience the Irish heart of this community in this state. And now I'm going to turn it over to Father Patrick Beretta.
Thank you very much. In the year 2005, Ambassador Ann Anderson moved into her new residence, one of the most prestigious addresses in Paris, the 12 Avenue Foch, which is the Irish Embassy, an absolutely stunning building. A couple of doors away from the residence of another very famous Irish American, the incomparable Grace Kelly. It was her residence after she became Princess Grace of Monaco. And it's also close to an address with an interesting Butte connection, also a sumptuous address, the 52 Avenue Victor Hugo, which was the Paris residence of the great Butte copper king William Clark, and where his 2 daughters, the brilliant André and the uniquely eccentric Huguette, were born. And my mother, who lived not too far from there, in a neighborhood with much less prestige, but not too far from there, always had tremendous pride that her beloved Ireland was represented by such a magnificent embassy building. And she would have been even prouder today that her beloved Ireland would be represented by an exceptional lady like you, Ambassador Anderson.
Nice.
Ambassador Anderson was born in the medieval and picturesque little town of County Tipperary, Clonmel, which during the medieval times experienced a period of great intellectual radiance because of the Cistercian Abbey there. She graduated exceptionally young from University College Dublin. I think you were not even 20 years of age, which is extraordinary. And she's now currently a Doctor of Laws from the National University of Ireland. She's got 1 daughter who was born in Washington, D.C., and who is now currently professionally a literary agent in the city, in New York City. On September 2013, Ambassador Anderson walked into the White House to present her credentials to President Obama. And his first words, President Obama's first words to her were, I have to quote perfect, he said to her, "This is the perfect dress." And he was referring to the fact, I think, that you were wearing a beautiful emerald green dress representing Ireland. So maybe you can tell us later if this was from an Irish designer. But growing up in an Irish family, I made an observation very young that Irish women have a very, very special strength. And it's an observation after I got to know the Butte Irish Women Ambassador that was not only confirmed but magnified about the strength of the Irish women of this city. But after spending a lifetime of studying Irish history, I call this the miraculous resilience of the Irish woman. It's a remarkable, remarkable treasure of our Irish tradition. And so Ambassador Anderson is a trailblazer. She reflects that strength. She entered the Department of Foreign Affairs in Ireland at a time when it was very, very male-dominated. Not quite as male-dominated as the Catholic priesthood, but close. Now, I want to share this series of firsts because it's absolutely remarkable. Series of firsts for Ambassador Anderson. She was the first woman Irish ambassador to the European Union, to France, to the United Nations, and to the United States of America. In 2001, she was the first woman ambassador to the European Union from any member state. That's only 15 years ago. And she describes her style as courteous but direct. And I think that's how you describe your diplomatic style. And I have two quotes from her that really illustrate her diplomatic philosophy. And I like them very much, and I'd like to share them with you. She says this: "Women have skills that allow them to excel in diplomatic situations when conflicting parties must collaborate." And when I read your remarks, Ambassador, it struck me that those were the skills required to moderate a Trump-Clinton debate. I also very much like this quote from Ambassador Anderson because it's full of psychology and wisdom. She says this: "Listening, understanding, and allowing everyone to take a victory is the key to success. And I think women are very good at that." I think you're exactly right, Ambassador, with this quote. I think it's beautiful. Now, in her stellar career, there's one element that shines even more than the rest for Ambassador. She calls chairing the Human Rights Commission at the United Nations her proudest achievement. And I think you did that in 1999 and 2000. Ambassador Anderson consistently makes the list of the 25 most powerful women of Ireland. And that's quite remarkable. So if there's young people here, they are all the young people that are here, remember that the combination of courteous but direct is a very effective combination. It really works. So, she considers her current objective as ambassadors to this country to be represent a modern, multifaceted 21st century Ireland and to focus on international and US investments to support the Irish economy and to create jobs in Ireland. And you've been very successful at that. Of her current appointment, she told a correspondent from the Irish Times, and I'm quoting her, "I genuinely cannot think of any greater privilege than being Irish ambassador to the United States of America." Ambassador Anderson, your accomplishments are exceptional. They're absolutely remarkable. You are a great inspiration, and what a pleasure and an honor to introduce you.
I just said to Father Beretta that was an extraordinarily generous introduction. And I have to say, an extremely well-researched introduction. I was holding my breath, wondering what quotation to be put in play, but thank you so much. I actually hadn't realized the French connection, and it's lovely to be reminded of that for wonderful years in my career. But it was such a pleasure also to hear from the AOH, speaking on behalf of the AOH, of the Ladies AOH. I already said this morning how, actually, you said I was a great diplomat. Maybe I haven't quite got it right today, going to Anaconda first. Maybe that's you talked about the Clinton-Trump debate. Maybe the Anaconda-Butte relationship is a sensitive one too to be navigated. But in any event, when I was in Anaconda earlier and hearing and meeting the Ladies AOH and the AOH, I said how much respect I have for that organisation. You are indeed ambassadors for Ireland. You use that phrase, wonderful ambassadors. And throughout my time in DC, I really enjoyed the interaction with the AOH and was very pleased to be at their two biannual national conventions that have been held during my time in St. Louis and this year in Atlantic City. So great that you're here in such numbers, always wonderful to see those sashes. I would say the same of the Friendly Sons and Daughters, and I am so happy that it goes under that title here, because I have been waging courteous but direct battle with the Friendly Sons of St. Patrick in DC, who haven't yet admitted daughters, and I've spent the last 3 years sometimes more directly than courteously telling them it's time. So I can now quote to them the precedents that are here in Butte. It really is, and this isn't a diplomatic cliche, it really is a wonderful experience for me to join you here in Butte. It's my first visit to Montana, and obviously my first visit to Butte, but I have heard so much about this 5th province for so long. And I have been absolutely fascinated by the story. And we had the possibility before coming into this beautiful building to drive a bit around the town and to absorb some sense of the town. And it is really not just a privilege, or those words that we normally use, but it is genuinely very moving to come to Butte. And listening to the national anthem being sung here in this room, that tremendous sense of continuity and pride, and thinking back to those who originally came here from Ireland and what they brought with them, and to think about the experience. Yes, originally some of them at least came because they knew mining. They had come from the Beara Peninsula and the mines were closing there, and that's what brought many of them originally. So they knew something about mining. But for the rest, the adjustment to the life here was must have been so challenging for them in so many ways. A different climate, the different culture, the different landscape, the rigors of the mines, the fact that so many of them, experience TB and other vulnerabilities here. What it must have been like, and the courage, and I think you used the word resilience, the courage and grit that it took to settle in, make a home of it. And the miners, but also you said women are resilient. And I was delighted when I saw the exhibition downstairs that there's a panel there about the women who distinguish themselves here as homemakers and support certainly, but also as working women in various roles. But to think back to that community and what it took to settle in and to take a hold and to imprint yourself in that way. And when we were hearing on the bus, and we've been getting lovely talk about the history, being pointed out to us that it was very different here in Butte and in Montana from the experience that the Irish had when they went to cities like New York and Boston and Chicago, where they came into established communities and had to work their way up. The Irish really were in at the foundations here, and they ended up being Irish, working for Irish, like Marcus Daly and the others. So it was a very, very different experience. But that building from nothing, and that toughness and courage, and we were hearing also excerpts from that book, Rahab Moore and Pale, and that gave an insight as well into the character, the sheer character of the people who came and stayed and made a life here. And Philip, who was introduced earlier, our Consul General for the Western US, Philip was telling me that this, in a way, was the mother colony for so many of the Irish who went on, who spent time here in Butte, and then history moved on and their lives moved on. And they went to other cities in the Western United States, and that when he's in places like Seattle or in Reno, Nevada or whatever, and he meets Irish communities there and he traces their history, they're people whose ancestors came here through Butte. And obviously many stayed, and you're the result of all of that in this room filled with the Sullivans and the Maloney's and so many Irish surnames. But those who moved on created their own lives then in other cities in the Western United States. So it is a history that is unique, is well known in Ireland, but is not as well known as it should be. I know that some of my predecessors, when they visited here, were so struck by this history. Mary McAleese, our former president, was here exactly 10 years ago. And I read her words at the time, and she was obviously so inspired by the visit. But I think it should be a mission for all of us to make sure that the story, the unique story of Butte, continues to resonate in Ireland. And I'm so delighted that the exhibition that was here was brought to the university in Cork and helps to spread the knowledge. And when I think about, I think I used the word this morning when I was talking about my visit here, that it was a sort of pilgrimage to Montana and this part of Montana, because of everything it signifies. But pilgrimage really is a word. When I've read the list of the Irish people who came here over the years, back to Michael Davitt, and then you had James Connolly and James Larkin, and the women, of course, as well, Countess Markovich and Hannah Sheedy Skeffington. It was a place of pilgrimage for so many of the greats in Irish history. And it's, again, moving, I used that word earlier, but to think of Eamon de Valera when he was here on his famous 1919 tour of the United States. And I gather that when he came to Butte, 10,000 people turned out to cheer him on, and another 5,000 in Anaconda. So it is an extraordinary history and legacy of pride. And to come into the town and see the signs of Irishness everywhere, not just the names, but when we visited the overlook of the mine.
Granite Mountain.
Well, Granite Mountain was we visited two places. I mean, the Granite Mountain, that memorial was just, it would move you to tears really, both the story of what happened, but particularly those letters of such courage and fortitude and the heroism that was in evidence there. But when we went to look at the sink, and we were getting into the bus afterwards, and you were pointing out to me, Philip, etched there you had the various Irish signs, the shamrock and the harp and so on. So all over in our drive around the town, we have seen, this is our town, and it feels like our town. I would just finish up by saying again, of course, it's the ideal year to make this visit, and the centenary year, and that of course is the focus of the conference, the American Conference for Irish Studies in Missoula. It is the immediate occasion for being here, and to hear about the celebration of the centenary here, the way it was marked, and the pride that was there. I think the centenary is something that we will be reflecting about as we head into the final months of this centenary year. What we will keep as a legacy of these extraordinary centenary commemorations. Back in Ireland and all over the United States, we've had more than 200 events across the United States, and of course you've contributed to that as well. And I think it has, in Ireland, it has helped to re-energize us as a nation. But I also think that it is very much helping to re-energize Irish America. It's been a moment of great pride and recollection, and communities around the United States are finding ways to reconnect and become even more active and so on. So it would have been at any time a wonderful experience to come to Butte, but this is a very special year to make the visit. So finally, thank you to all of you, to the associations, the AOH, the Ladies AOH, the Friendly Sons and Daughters. Wonderful to hear about the Re-Raw Festival, and I remember that day, the second week of August, you said, okay. And it's, as I say, truly moving to be here with this sense of pride and rootedness and continuity, and I am really very, very happy to be here. And thank you all for the warm welcome.
We have gifts.
But I have my.
That's the best gift. You're in the Copper City, so there's a pound of copper. And this is from the AOHs and the Friendly Sons and the archives.
Oh, this is marvelous.
You know? And they're pitching music,
Thank you so much.
and then a book about them.
Oh, wonderful. Motherload.
Lunch is coming next, and Helen has asked me to pray a little blessing. So, Almighty God, we're so grateful for the treasures of our Irish history and Irish culture. We're so grateful for the people committed, dedicated to cultivate it, cherish it, preserve it, and pass it on. Please bless Ambassador Anderson. Please bless Consul Grant. Please bless the United States of America and Ireland and the friendship between our two countries. We ask you to also please bless the lunch that is going to be served and the people who prepared it for us.